Radio. For DZRJ 810 AM, just type in DZRJ 810 AM on TuneIn Radio, Streama, and Radio Garden. Happy listening!
Bong, yung naumpisahan ko, tapusin mo. Mga bagong highway, tulay, tren, dapat ma-enjoy na kaagad ng mga tao yan. Kailangan lahat bakunado at laging may ayuda pag kailangan. Huwag dapat makabalik ang mga drug lords para ligtas ang pamilya. Yung ginawa mong malasakit centers, maganda yan. Padamihin mo pa. Magkasama tayo. Tayo ang nagsimula. Tuloy-tuloy lang. Tuloy-tuloy, Presidente.
You are watching the multi-awarded Radio Bandido TV on Channel 224 Sky Cable and TV Plus boxes. Simulcast on DZRJ 810 AM. Informing, advising, and entertaining the Filipinos and OFWs around the world. Streaming live on www.facebook.com/DZRJ 810 AM or on YouTube, channel RJAM News. To all Teleradio Bandido viewers and listeners, you can now watch Teleradio Bandido on our new YouTube channel, RJAM News. Hit the subscribe button and like the video. Don't forget to click the bell icon so you get notified when a new video gets uploaded. Don't miss out on our dynamite lineup.
Hello and welcome to the World News Jam right here on DZRJ and RJTV. My name is Eric Lecain and I'm joined as always with Lalie Tolentino. We're here to talk about stories going on around the world, to answer your questions and discuss what's on your mind. Lalie Tolentino. Usually I ask how you are, but if you guys have noticed, Lalie Tolentino, today I sound like I'm Barry White.
You are white.
I'm definitely white. But yes, last night I had dinner with some friends of mine in the beautiful city of Cebu, a very nice restaurant. And we were finishing dinner and we were about to leave when I said, "So, who are you voting for in the election?" And then the conversation went on for another hour and a half. And I think I lost my voice from talking too much.
That's what you get when you talk too much, Eric.
Yes.
Especially if you talk about politics. There will be some,
And it was always one of these conversations where, you're talking, and you're thinking you're almost done, and then you go, but what about this? But what do you think of? And then before you know it, another hour and a half has gone by, and I've said about 10,000 words. So, but anyway, speaking of things, that are going on in the world, the Philippines was opening up. The Philippines said, "Hey, we're opening up to the world," and then maybe they made an announcement that they were going to, by the DFA, that they were opening up, and then something called Omicron made its move on the world. Omicron.
Yes, the new variant.
B.1.1.529, also known as Omicron, sprouted up there in South Africa, and it's been roaming around Botswana and Belgium and Hong Kong and Israel. But all of the cases of this Omicron have originated out of South Africa. And I guess you can say, as usual with all these new variants, Lalie Tolentino, it spreads more quickly, and it's more lethal, and it's more susceptible to the vaccine. So, we know the drill. But the one good thing about this is now we're able to recognize these strains much faster and stop people from coming into countries where it's known to come from. So hopefully they're going to be able to stop this thing really quick, because the Philippines just opened up. They just opened, and now this problem. But they're banning countries that they know that the variant's already in. But here's the interesting thing, Lalie, is if a country knows that if they say they have a new variant and then they're going to get banned all over the world, I wonder if people will be slow to announce that they have a new variant.
We don't know. But you know what? They need to be honest and truthful about this, because this is something that can kill people. We are not done yet with the pandemic. The Philippines is trying to be, more relaxed now, because it's going to be Christmas. Everyone is kind of celebrating already, planning for everything. And all of a sudden, there's an announcement, there's a new Omicron. I said, oh my God.
Yeah, but I mean, we knew, you and I have both been saying it's not over. It's just funny that like every week there's a new variant, and the variant that's out is worse than any other variant. And it's going to be, the vaccine won't work on it. But I mean, of course, they don't know yet. They don't know for sure. This has all been hyped up by the media, but they don't know for sure, because it takes time. It takes time to test it and to see what it is. And it really hasn't spread that much yet. So it's not like the Delta one, which was, became the main product of the virus. I mean, this one is still in its beginning stages. And I think they only found like 2 cases of it in Hong Kong, but everything comes from South Africa.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think the monkeys there are giving out the virus. I don't know, something's going on there in South Africa. But speaking of things that are not working together, and like I said, we need to work together to get the virus down and out of our system. But another interesting story, and I wanted to hear your take on this. It's about a young and upcoming pole vaulter, EJ Obinia. Is that how you say his last name? Obinia. This story came out. Yeah. It's this, it's this story, Lalie, that we're used to hearing about young Philippine athletes who are trying to win medals for their country. However, they're being dragged down by the federation. In all my years of sports, I've never seen a country with more wars going on in the sports federation than I have in the Philippines. I mean, really? Literally, every other month you see something going on with athletics or boxing or swimming or weightlifting or volleyball. There always seems to be in a continuous war with sports officials who are mostly politicians. They're not athletes. They're mostly politicians to get themselves elected to these positions. It seems not so much to help the sport, but to feed their ego and their pockets. I mean, you've heard all this before. And I keep hearing the same stories, just over and over. And believe me, I have some firsthand knowledge of this because I used to work in sports here. But the funny thing is, if you look over the last 15 years of Philippine sports, you notice that the officials are the same guys. They just keep switching positions. Like they'll do something and they'll get kicked out of the present team, but then they'll move to another position, and then in a couple of years they'll be back to the present. I see this going on. They switch around, but usually it's the same guys that are running sports over and over again. In this latest stupidity that's going on right now, it's about basically, it looks like pride and ego. It started with this phone call. I don't know if you've been following the story. A lot of people out there have. It's a phone call where somebody said, hey, why don't you help that Filipino pole vaulter with some of the money? And the president of athletics flipped out, wanted to know where the money went that he had already sent him. And, this created like a firestorm that comes to the Philippines so often. And the pole vaulter was given money for his training. And, in the Philippines, if you get money, you have to show how you spend it. For instance, hiring your coach. And he was supposed to pay his coach, but the federation said he didn't pay his coach and that he better return the money or might be in big trouble for embezzlement. Although then they later denied that they said that. But then, later they said that he didn't steal the money, that he was just late in his payment. And EJ said, hey, I paid my coach and we're on good terms. So, screw you, federation. So this whole thing started up, now. He's arguing the fact that he has to do it all on his own. Like, why do I have to do all this on it? Why do I have to pay the coach, do all this stuff on my own? So he said, maybe I'll just retire and go back to college. Or maybe I'll move to another country and I'll pole vault for them. Because other countries right now are inviting him to give him citizenship. So he'll come and pole vault for them because he's great. I mean, he's a world-class pole vaulter. He's one of the best pole vaulters in the world. And Lalie, doesn't this remind you some of the marathoner? Remember the marathoner who qualified for the Olympics? And then the president of the federation tried to stop her from going to the Olympics because she did it all on her own. So I just want to point this out.
Yeah, I just don't understand why is this happening, especially for our athletes. I mean, we created a good and created really talented athletes here in the Philippines. It's just that why all of a sudden they became part of what I kind of look at it like politics. There's always a politics somewhere. I mean, this is politics really doesn't help in any avenue. And a guy like EJ, I mean, a very talented guy, and now I saw and I read about it, and he said he's going to retire. Oh my God, he's too young to retire for this.
He's too young.
And you know what?
He's at he's at the number 5 in the world. I mean, and you're going to retire.
Exactly. So now, but with that, having said that, you know what I'm going to do? If there's really an offer of citizenship somewhere, I'll go for it. I'll go for it.
I mean, I would too.
If my own
I would
country
too.
Cannot protect me, then I'll go somewhere else.
I'll go someplace else.
That's my personal opinion.
It's this whole thing of the officials thinking that they are more important than the athlete. And I see this so often, that officials here in the Philippines will try and make themselves more important, that they have the power. I have the power over the athletes because I am the president of, athletics. And even if they're doing it all on their own, that guy knows that he's the one that needs to sign the document so that person can go into competitions, because that's the way it works. A lot of problems that we had on the volleyball team back in the day before is trying to get the federation to sign our documents so we can go to competitions, even if we were paying for the whole thing ourselves. And I don't see this going on in other countries. In other countries, the athlete has the power. The athlete, because they're the ones that, they are the stars of the show. But here, they're not really the stars, and they can be replaced at any time. And that's why I don't think sports grows here. And I know I don't want to say anything bad about the Philippine athletes, because I've seen some amazing athletes here. But you look at the weightlifter. I mean, we all know Heidelin. But there was lots of problems with her, lots of problems. And then she won the gold medal, and all of a sudden, all the problems were solved. But before that, look what happened before that. I mean, look at what happened to the dragon boat issue. The dragon boat guys were some of the best dragon boaters in the world, and they had to kind of create their own group because the federation wouldn't even recognize them. So, it's really about power and pride and ego, and sometimes I think the only person that loses is the Philippines.
Yeah. That's the thing. And, I hope this ego thing of those people, I mean, especially those who are in the government, I mean, they should sometime, why don't you just help them, just do your job, but don't be overacting on the issue, because, you are not helping the country, you are not even helping the athlete. They're the one running, they're the one, doing this thing. This is not easy because, when you get older, your health will not, you don't know what will happen to your health, right? I mean, if you're old now, but you're young, you have all the energy, you can do your whatever. But, there's the big risk in doing this thing. I don't know why. I mean,
right now is EJ's time. EJ is gotten into the sport at the exact correct time for him. He's not injured. There's not 100 pole vaulters that are better than him. He's in at the right time. This is his time. And this is why other countries are offering him citizenship, because they see, I mean, my goodness, this kid is, a special specimen. And maybe we can get him to come to our country and we'll pay for everythting. And if I was EJ, I'd be thinking, you know what? I really love my country. I want to do things for my country. But hey, listen, these other countries are offering me a way out, a future. And so why not? And I think that would be the worst thing that would happen to the Philippines, because, it is tough. It's tough in a country, Philippines is not a rich country. And so when you have some exemplary athlete that comes along every once in a while who is going to be, someone who's going to make a difference in the Olympics, that's going to go into the Olympics and possibly, win a medal, I think they need to, really handle that person much better.
Okay, let me say this. Let's take note of this. In case America offered and he accepted it, and again they won, Filipinos would claim he is a Filipino. I mean, they will take all the credit.
We saw in the weightlifter thing, once she got the gold medal, all of a sudden everybody helped her. We all helped her. Well, I did this and I did this. But speaking of helping people, Maria Ressa's in the news again. I know your favorite person. She's in the news again this week. Whether you love her or hate her, she won the Nobel Peace Prize for her work in journalism. Most notably, her work on the murders that involved in the Duterte anti-drug campaign. Now, she's the first Filipino to win such an award, and actually the work that she did, whether you like it or not, it's good. I mean, I've read her stuff. It's good. So anyway, she's the first Filipino to win this thing, but there's an issue this week about whether she can accept the award or not. She wants to go and accept the award, and they are not going to let her go. The Solicitor General is saying, no, you cannot go. You have no respect for our judicial system in the Philippines, and he filed a motion with the Court of Appeals that she may not be allowed to go there because, as he said, she may not come back. And the ironic thing I find about all this, and I know you can't wait to comment on this, Lalie. The ironic thing is right now she's actually in the United States. She's in the United States doing a lecture at Harvard. She wants to just detour to Norway to pick up her award. But he says she should not be allowed because she's a flight risk. And it's not really necessary for her to get an award. Why does she need to get that award? Anyway, he says she did not have a compelling argument or evidence that she should be allowed to pick it up. One of the most prestigious awards to anyone in the world that the Philippines has never won. And that by not allowing her to fly, doesn't that prove her point that she's been making all along, that if you're a journalist and you write the truth about what's going on in the Philippines, they will censor you or intimidate you or put you in jail, etc., etc. Okay, Lalie, what do you think of this?
Well, you said everything already. I thought she's still in the Philippines because the moment, if she's still in the Philippines, she cannot really leave right now. But if she's already in the States, of course, because that's the thing that she can do, really. Why will I come back? I mean, I'll just stay wherever I am. So if she's in the United States and if she has the chance to go to Norway to pick it up, I mean, I think she can do that. I don't know how they're going to stop her from flying from the U.S. to Norway.
Well,
so I don't know.
Here's what I think. I mean, I don't think she's going to want to try and break the law. I mean, they gave her permission to go to the United States to do those lectures, and now she's like, well, since I'm already here, I want to pick up my award in Norway on the way back. And they're like, oh no, we're not going to let you do that. And they're like, why not? And says, well, because you're a flight risk. I'm a flight risk. I'm already in the United States. So why you want to stop me from doing this? And so it just looks not so great for the Philippines, I have to say. I think they should probably just let her do it. Let her go and get her award, and then the Philippines can say that they have won a Nobel Peace Prize.
All right. Anything else? I don't want to comment anymore.
I know. I had a feeling Lalie doesn't want to comment on this.
I don't want to comment on this one because I will be bashed tomorrow. Anyway, so let me go. Can we start our?
Let's go to the questions. Viewers? That's our viewers' questions here.
Yeah, we have interesting question from
lighter
different parts of the world. Filipino, of course, asking question. Iman from Quezon City. What do you know about Channel? Is it a Channel tragedy? Why France and Britain are having escalation wars now?
Yeah, I mean, okay, this was a tragedy story. I mean, okay, it involves the English Channel. The English Channel, the water that runs between Britain and France. The English Channel has always been a place for people to swim across. It's such an achievement when somebody swims across the English Channel from France to Britain. But lately, this week, it's become a place of tragedy because people who are trying to get across are not trying to swim across. They're trying to get across just to have a better life. And, the problem is that smugglers are taking them across the channel for a price. And you have to pay up front because, the English Channel is not that easy to cross. You might think it is. It looks like a lake, but it's not a lake. Anyway, a bunch of Iraqis got on this small boat and they tried to make this cross and it sank. And 27 people lost their lives trying to get across the English Channel, including women and children and a pregnant woman. So right now the issue is they're trying to identify the dead people because they were illegals in the country. So how hard is it going to be to identify an illegal Iraqi it's going to be very difficult. So, Anyway, the problem in this tragedy is that France and Britain are both blaming each other for this problem. There's an immigration problem in France, for sure. I mean, France, people are coming over from Africa, from Arab countries into France. So the French president, Emmanuel Macron, got on the phone with Boris Johnson, the prime minister of Britain, and said, hey, you know what? You need to cool it with all your stuff. Stop making all these boastful things that you're saying about this just to get your political numbers up. And of course, the Brits turn around and say, well, France, you know, they're just letting people get into boats. Everybody can see it. Why aren't the French doing something to stop these people from trying to cross the English Channel? And France is saying, you know, listen, we can't be the only ones. We're the only ones with these immigration issues of Arabs coming into the country. German, Belgium, you know, and Britons, they need to get involved in this because we can't do it all by ourselves. So, you know, Lalie, I guess the question I have is, why do all these Arabs want to go to Britain anyway? And I think the reason is because Britain has very lax immigration policies. And, you know, another interesting point that I remember is these smugglers were in France. They smuggled these people from France. They were trying to smuggle them from France. But these guys had German purchased boats and German license plates. So this is an issue that is covering around Europe. I mean, the old way of getting people across the English Channel was to get them on a cargo ship. But getting them on a cargo ship nowadays is very, very expensive. So it's much cheaper to hire some guy to get you in a blow-up dinghy and smuggle you across that way. But like I said, the English Channel is not that easy to cross.
Okay, I have not been there, so I cannot say it's not easy. But then, you know what, the problem here is that, you know, smuggling those people from France to, you know, Britain, it's really a big issue because they're Arabian people. So what's the real agenda of going into Britain, right? So we don't know. So that's why. But of course, there's an immigration, you know, laws in every country. So
yeah,
we'll just wait for the next news for that.
I mean, this year so far, 25,000 illegals have tried to cross the English Channel in a dinghy.
In a day?
You know, in a dinghy, a little blow-up boat. And people say, well, you know, there's always, well, you know, the terrorists and so forth. These aren't terrorists. These are people that just need a job. People trying to get a better life. Mm-hmm. And it's funny, there's a store in France now that says, listen, we're going to stop selling kayaks to people that look like they're trying to cross the English Channel into Britain. So if you're an Arab and you come into a sports store wearing your Arab clothes and you walk in and you say, I want to buy a kayak, they're not going to give you. They're not going to sell you a kayak anymore. That's what they're doing in France to try and curb this problem. But like I said, you know, these people that are coming out of these countries in Northern Africa and these Arab countries, I mean, especially in Iraq. If you're in Iraq, I mean, you're starving. So what would you do? What would you do? I mean, Iraq is in a horrible shape right now. And so, of course, I mean, look at, you know, who was just elected to the president of the Iraqi, you know, it's just the stuff that's going on around that part of the world is horrible. And so, of course, the people are like, hey, you know what? Britain doesn't have very, hard immigration laws. All I got to do is get through France, get myself on a boat and get over there. And then I can disappear and I can have a much better life. And I could see maybe if I was them, I might want to do that too.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, even Filipinos, they go other places to have a better life, and you know that's how it is.
Yeah, in Philippines,
they don't like. Yeah, Filipinos. You know, there's so many cases about traveling from one country to another. I know a lot of stories about this. Even look at Mexico. The Mexican, they just cross the border. You know, issues everywhere. I think. All right, now let's go to Irma Opataan.
Hide in the trunk of a car. Anyway.
Okay, what can you comment on the alleged sexual issue against Zhang Gaoli versus Peng Shuai, the tennis player, and now he's heading to the 2022 Winter Olympics? Oh, I'm sure you'll know this story.
Yeah, we talked about this last week. This subject came up. We didn't know what happened to Peng Shuai, the famous tennis player. We didn't know if she was dead or alive, and she accused the former vice premier of China of having sex with her when she didn't want it. And that made everyone uneasy because once she made this accusation, all the instances of this on the Chinese internet were erased. Everything was erased. And then she disappeared completely. So the WPA made a statement that if China did not show proof of life, they might pull out of all the tennis matches in China. Okay, wow. So now this, you know, the center of all this is this guy. He's the former vice premier of, and currently he's China's head guy working on the 2022 Winter Olympic Games. So this has turned from an accusation on social media, which is what it was, to what might be an international incident. If she's being held in a Chinese prison, or she's dead, or maybe worse than that, you know, okay, I'm trying to make it really dramatic. But it all started, honestly, it started when she wrote, "Why did you have to come back to me, take me to your home, and force me to have sex with you?" I'm like, you're a famous tennis player, and you write that? So that's what she wrote, and that showed up November 2nd. And it took, what? Then the Chinese government jumped in, and they immediately did one of those blanket censorships where they make everything disappear, like really fast. But the problem was she disappeared. And after much pressure, you know, the Chinese government, they just released, because the Chinese government, the media is controlled by the government, and they released photos of her. So that said, she is alive. But look at these photos we have. So... But you know, if anybody's, yeah, I know, but yeah, when were these photos taken? But what's interesting about this, and just to quickly, you know, the story was she had a sexual relationship with this guy who was 75 years old, about 10 years ago, but then he was promoted to that really big job, and then he cut off the relationship with her, and then when he retired, when he retired from that job, she was asked to come to Beijing to play a tennis match, and after that match, the ex-premier and his wife invited her back to their place, and that's where the wife and the husband pressured her to have sex with him. And she said she cried through the whole thing, but she finally agreed to have sex with him because of panic and fear. And afterwards she was disgusted, and she felt like a walking corpse, and she wrote all this. And so she wrote all this, and it was deleted in 30 minutes by the Chinese censors because they're incredibly fast. But I mean, the question is going to be, is this going to be a government investigation? Are they going to investigate it? They're going to sweep it under the rug? Is she ever going to play tennis again? You know, so far the government hasn't even acknowledged that this is going on. So, and now, okay, Lalie, countries are talking about boycotting the Olympics in China because of this. Yeah.
Well, and you know what? This is not only issue in China. I know a lot of stories
this is not the
all
only
over the
issue in
world.
China.
I mean, taking advantage of having sex with the athletes. I know you know a lot of countries having
I
this.
mean, you know, China's a funny place, because what we think of in the world as a bad thing, China's like, hey, you know what? Okay, so it happened. Next. And they're not so worried about it. But in the rest of the world right now, with the Me Too movement and everything, I mean, this is big news, and everybody can't wait for her to play a tennis match and get out of the country so they can interview her about this. And how is that going to go? So the Chinese have to make a decision on whether she's ever going to play tennis again or not.
If she's alive.
If she's alive, or worse.
Okay, let's go to Edo Paranaque. All right. President Biden being criticized for spending at billionaire's place for Thanksgiving. Why not?
Oh my gosh. Okay, all right. So in the U.S., prices are going up, just like they are in the rest of the world. Things like food. So, you know, they just have to reiterate that food. You know, right now in the United States, food is like the cheapest thing. We have some of the cheapest food in the world. People don't realize in the United States, food is cheap because we got so much of it. But Thanksgiving dinner for 10 supposedly now costs $53, about whatever, 2,600 pesos for a dinner for 10 people. So that's up 14% from last year. So Biden spent his Thanksgiving on a property owned by David Rubenstein. This property's estimated like $30 million. He doesn't own it. He just went there for dinner. So the Republicans lost their minds. They come on talk shows and they made a huge deal about how Biden is out of touch with Americans, that he's eating his Thanksgiving on a property that's worth $30 million, and while he's eating these expensive dinners while Americans are having to pay $53 for their Thanksgiving. All right.
Oh, big deal.
Stupidity. I mean, all right. I mean, you go eat in a fancy restaurant, so we're going to yell at you because, everybody else is having to eat. I mean, what to say? I mean, right. I mean, the problem I have with this is, the problem I have with this. In the United States, the food is the cheapest about of anywhere in the world. I mean, you want to compare food prices to the Philippines, to the United States? You want me to go through this on what each thing, costs and how much cheaper it is in the United States? So yes, food is more expensive in the United States this year because prices have gone up everywhere on everything. So, I think, we should be worried about other things other than where the president is having his Thanksgiving dinner, but that's just me.
Yeah, and plus, you know what? He's not the one paying for this dinner anyway. He just got invited. So what's wrong with that? That's I read about this. I said, oh my God. I get invited too sometimes with expensive dinner. I don't pay for that dinner. So there's something wrong about that? I have to thank the person who invited me.
You can't eat $1 million worth of food. We're humans. Yeah. Whether you're president or not, you can only eat so much food.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Or maybe we can go to that place where was that? We had one with, is it the French fries in New York?
Oh, yeah, the $700 French fries. I guess we could, I guess you could do that if you wanted to. But like I said, the Republicans are running out of things to pin him on, and so that's something that they had to pick because they got a lot. They don't have a lot else to talk about him, about how bad a president he is because he's eating at a $30 million estate. Not a $30 million steak, a $30 million estate.
State. You have to spell it first, Eric.
Yes, okay.
The steak and the steak. Estate, whatever. Anyway, let's go to Gino Cavite. Okay. So we're really getting international now, back to Europe. Germany's new government agreed to make a big hike in minimum wage. Do you think the Philippines should do the same with the next administration?
Okay, let me just say yes. Okay, I mean, the government there, the new government in Germany, they plan to agree because, we've been talking about Angela Merkel a lot lately, and she's going to be stepping down. So there's a new government coming in. They plan to increase the minimum wage in Germany by 25%. Yes. So that's the current wage of $10.77. It's going to go up to $13.46. So that's about, 700 pesos per hour that people will be making in Germany. But, it needs to rise because of the inflationary pressure that they're having in Germany. So that's what they decided to do. Now, as far as the Philippines, the current wage is, what is the current wage here? Between $3.16 and $5.37. In Manila, it's $5.37 now, right? Per day. Per day. Like, not per hour, per day. So as Germany is trying to keep up with inflation, which is, and when a minimum wage, they try and keep up with inflation. So the amount of money that you make corresponds with the cost of goods. Is that in any way happening in the Philippines? In my opinion, okay, wait a minute, not really my opinion. No, it's not. Lalie, I had a conversation with a taxi driver on just this very subject just the other day about Philippine salaries and education and the fact that they will never go up because the rich people in the Philippines, they don't want it to go up. They want people to stay not educated, and they don't want to pay more for their maids and their drivers and their yayas. And if they have companies, they don't want to pay their workers anymore. So, and a lot of times these are the people that are in government. They don't want to raise the minimum wage. They don't want it to go up to something that would be more standard, more conducive to the rest of Southeast Asia. I don't think that sometimes they don't want the Filipino people to get any smarter. Because if they do, then they wouldn't vote for them. So, what is the poor ratio to rich people in the Philippines? 98-2, something like that. I heard that before. There's a massive gap. There's a huge gap. There's not a lot of middle. There's a lot of middle. There's a lot of poor people, and there's a couple of rich people. So, it's how the rich people are able to continue to use the poor people to increase their wealth. Should I be saying this? Probably not, but you asked, so I'm answering. So that's what I think. I think that the Philippines should increase the minimum wage to something just slowly conducive to what's happening with inflation in the Philippines. Look at the gas prices here. Look at the electricity prices. Look at the food. Look how much food costs. And we're still making, $10 in U.S. money or $537. $537 is the top. That's the top minimum wage that you can make per day.
Yeah, that's the sad part of that. And I hope really that the next president will do something about this, because, they can always promise that they will do this, they will do that, but then when the moment they get there, they cannot even do it, because even though they have the power, but then they will argue with the business people. I said, I heard so much of this, so many. I'm a senior citizen. I know I've heard this many years. When the politicians talk about this, I hope one politician will really come up with a good plan.
Yes.
In the next administration.
Hey, Bong Bong, if you win, give us some of your money.
Yes, I'll ask them.
Give us some of your father's money.
Let's go to Ethel Bermita. What happened to Solomon Island? Why are they protesting in the middle of pandemic, even with the 36 hours lockdown being implemented? Where's Solomon Island, Eric?
Is an important story. It really is. It's a very interesting story because how slightly it relates to the Philippines. Now, the Solomon Islands is a group of islands about 1,000 islands north of Australia. And recently, the government decided to throw its allegiances from Taipei to China. And many of them believe that the government officials were paid off by the Chinese government to do this, to make it easier for China to move into that territory and start, building and taking over certain parts of that part of the Pacific. So a bunch of protesters tried to storm the prime minister's residence this week, and they set fires and blah, blah, blah. And police had to use tear gas to disperse the crowd. And there were shots fired. This has become a really big deal because Taipei and the United States relied on the Solomon Islands to support them to keep China from taking over and controlling this part of the Pacific, this region. And now, all of a sudden, these new government officials are going to just turn it over to China or turn their allegiance over to China. And this is scary.
Yeah. Well, I think we need to follow up on this, story, because this is a really scary type of story for the people of Solomon Island.
And it could be a scary story for a lot of us, a lot of people, especially anybody that lives in the Pacific.
Yeah, including Philippines. Anyway.
Yes.
All right, now let's go to May of Makati. Why did the Swedish Prime Minister resign after being voted in? Wow, he won and then he resigned right away? Yeah.
Isn't this crazy? We talk about crazy politics in the Philippines. I mean, this week, Sweden voted in its newest prime minister, a woman, which is a big deal. And everybody thought that there would be a big celebration because a woman just got voted in as prime minister in Sweden. And after she was voted in, her coalition partner, there in Europe they use coalitions to elect prime ministers. So her coalition partner quit, and the budget she was going to do was voted down, and a different one was brought in by a bunch of anti-immigrant, far right-wing party members. So all of a sudden, she's voted in as prime minister, and now she has to deal with these far right-wing people that believe that only white people should be in Sweden. And so she's like, I'm not doing that. So she said that she had no choice. She had to resign, even though she had just been voted in. And she said she would like to become the prime minister again, but not under a budget that's going to be drafted by these people. So instead of celebrating a woman being the next prime minister, the government needs to figure out what they're going to do now, because now they have no prime minister. And could this right-wing part of the government now try and institute, put in their own prime minister, and then what's going to happen to Sweden? So this is one of those instances of the far right and this nationalistic type of people taking over governments.
Well, oh my goodness, maybe I can put you there, Eric, as the prime minister.
I would like to be the prime minister of Sweden, although I do not have a coat big enough to survive in Sweden. I like the warm temperatures of the Philippines, so I probably would not do well in Sweden.
Yes,
I haven't skied in a long time. I don't think I could ski
all right,
anymore.
just stay in the Philippines, Eric. Don't go there.
All right.
Anyway, let's go to Nathan of Pasig. I like this. How do us astronauts celebrate Thanksgiving in outer space? Do they have turkey with them?
All right. Okay. All right. As we know, as we talked about last week, the U.S. says Thanksgiving, it's more popular than Christmas sometimes. And if you're away from home, what are you going to do to celebrate Thanksgiving? Well, these people are away from home. They're off planet. And they're surrounded by a bunch of Russians and Europeans that don't know anything about Thanksgiving. So they, decided to have the holiday up there, and they brought stuff. They brought roast turkey and crab bisque and potatoes au gratin and yams and cobbler. And, there was no mention of that dried out stuffing that my mother always used to try and push on us during Thanksgiving. But they seemed to have a really good time. They made, they got all the Russians and the Europeans to come around, and they all fed them Thanksgiving dinner. And then they had online talks with their families and friends. And, interestingly enough, they had Thanksgiving in space in 1973 in Skylab. Remember Skylab?
Yeah.
And so they've been doing this every time. It's a tradition now. So in space, if you're in space during Thanksgiving, they, give thanks. They give up there, and they have, they bring the stuff in little packets, I guess, little baggets, and they give thanks for no air leaks in the ship, and the fact that the toilets are working, I guess, which was a problem there a couple of weeks ago with the toilets not working. So and thank God that the Martians haven't invaded us yet. I don't know, whatever you give thanks for in space. But anyway, just a funny little story that yes, they're having Thanksgiving up there, giving thanks to the world from outside the world.
Yes. All right. Okay. Just got a follow up, question related to that. This is from Paul of Alabang. Turkey is the main dish of Americans during Thanksgiving. Why? Explain, Mr. Lecain. Why is it?
I don't know where we're getting all these Thanksgiving questions. So, there's all kinds of reasons that people believe for this. The colonists, when they came over to the United States, they hunted wild turkey back in whatever the first Thanksgiving was, 1621. And supposedly because they hunted wild turkey, people thought that, they must have eaten turkey for Thanksgiving. Surely they did. And so when Lincoln declared it a holiday, that whole turkey story just kind of caught on. Whether it's true or not, we're not sure. Some say it's because of the Queen of England, that the Queen of England preferred goose. And since everybody hated the Queen of England so much because the Queen of England was ordering their deaths, that they chose turkey instead. So, actually, to tell you the truth, it was the Indians that brought the food from the first feast, and they're most likely to have brought deer meat and bear meat. But we can't make deer and bear our main dish of Thanksgiving. So we're kind of stuck with turkey. And it's interesting because turkeys are very plentiful in the United States. Benjamin Franklin, the guy who discovered electricity, he wanted to make the turkey the national bird of the United States. But everybody was like, oh, maybe that's not such a good idea. Let's pick the eagle instead because it looks a little better. But I guess just thinking of things that I can say for this subject, turkeys cannot fly. However, turkeys can run 20 miles an hour. I bet you didn't know that.
All right. Good info, Eric. Thank you for... Anyway, I have not eaten turkey yet for a long time. Oh, I had one that last Thursday. But anyway.
You had turkey last Thursday? I did not. I could not find turkey anywhere in the Philippines. So I ate
There's
chicken.
one else. So.
Chicken, and we just made it look like turkey.
Yeah, a small turkey. Called chicken.
Call it chicken.
Now let's go to
it's a small turkey.
Now this is from Edgar of Manila. Do you see sign that Senator Bongo will withdraw from the presidential race? So let's talk about this.
Okay, all right, let's talk about this. I don't think that Bongo ever meant to run for president. Mm-hmm. I don't think he ever really meant. I think he got caught up in the games and the trickery of President Duterte, and when the Marcoses didn't play that game the way they were supposed to, Go had no choice in what he had to do. even he said that switching to presidency was very unexpected, that he didn't plan for this. That, basically, after all this stuff, he just got caught up in the Marcoses and the Dutertes. And he woke up one day and he started to ask this question to himself: what the heck am I doing here? But, he's pressing on, and, I think there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes, a lot of negotiating going on behind the scenes. BBM has many problems, and, ISCO started to make a move on him. I think that they will wait a while. I think Go will have to wait a while. If he's going to back out, he needs to wait till the right time. If he's going to help the daughter get elected. And I think, he has to remember his last name is not Duterte and it's not Marcos. And I think he realized that at one point. And Marcos is going to use every single situation he can to get elected. And I think they are right now. He was going to, I could be wrong. I could be totally wrong. I think he was like, you know what? I don't want to be here anymore. I don't want to be in the middle of this whole freaking mess with these two crazy families. But he can't quit now. He can't quit now. So I think, Marcos needs to use him as a stepping stone to get to where he needs to go. And, Go is saying now, well, I'm going to leave it to God. But, I don't think God wants to get involved in this in any way in Filipino politics. So I think,
because he was really caught in the middle of this because, it was De La Rosa who was supposed to run for that. And even De La Rosa was not ready. He was called to come to public and file his candidacy, COC, and then everything happened for a reason. It's not
De La Rosa
planned,
came out and said it. He said it point blank. Listen, I came into the presidency so I can help Sarah when she finally decides she wants to run. He came out and said it.
He said
and then they
it,
didn't even use it. They didn't even use it. Poor De La Rosa.
I know. This is a kind of crazy thing now in the Philippines. So, well, like I always say, we just have to wait and see because you can withdraw anyway. Anybody can withdraw at any given time. So this is not the right time because campaigning is not yet have not started yet. But of course they're doing their own agenda already to for people to know them. So politics in the Philippines is entertaining, and sometimes it's if you are, we call it picon. If you get crazy about this, there's already breakup among friends and family. Who are they going to vote? And I said, well, this is the thing that you should not really discuss yet. Just be quiet. If you're with a friend who is not on your, like, you don't have the same candidate, don't talk about it. Because otherwise she will, why do you like that guy? Oh, why do you like, and Filipinos are very emotional when it comes to this matter. So, so I'm saying, we don't want to talk about, especially here in our show, we cannot be citing from, anybody. Just have to base everything on whatever we read or what we know. So, but not telling people who to vote and what to do during election. Just be vigilant and, know your candidates.
Yeah, last night I'm at dinner and we're about to leave. And then I made that stupid comment. I said, so who you voting for president? And he goes, and my friend's like, you mean in the upcoming election? I'm like, yeah. What did I just say? It's like, oh, well. And then I looked over at his wife and I said, yeah, who you guys voting for? And the husband says, well, she has her candidate and I have my candidate. I'm like, oh no. So an hour and a half conversation, a debate about, and I love debating it. I love debating because I'm sort of kind of a offset. I'm not on either team. I'm just off the side, just making silly comments at both sides. And he started, he was for Marcos and she was for Moreno, and I'm like, okay, well, why are you why, for what reason? And this is what, and I have to say the debate got a little bit heated because me, I study this stuff because I'm fascinated by it, and I'm always going to be fascinated as to what people believe history is, especially when it comes in regards to the Marcos. And now, we got into a little debate, which kind of got a lot of a whole lot of words going on back and forth about why are you voting for this particular candidate, and I'm waiting for and why do you think history is kind of being told the way it is being told now, and how does that relate to the candidate? And that's, that is a subject that I think is going to escalate throughout this election, and we're going to continue to talk about it here, even though some people don't want to talk about it because they don't have a good argument for it. But still, this is going to be a big issue. And the fact that the guy who is the absolute front runner now, or very close to being the front runner, looks like he may win the election, has so many things, so many mountains against him. So that makes it even more, that it adds even more to the conversation.
Yeah, and you can see numbers already. I mean, without the election yet, you can see numbers. I mean, when you look at the caravan now, I think today they have also caravan. I mean, all over the Philippines. So they're showing force. So sometimes they do it, because if they love the candidates, they do it. So, but some people they don't. Saying things, and I said, okay, I'll just keep quiet. I don't want to argue about this because this is not healthy for me, because I might get a heart attack. No way.
I mean, I think the funniest thing in the world that I've ever seen in any country are the caravans. The Philippines is so big on the caravans. Look at the Lalie caravans. Look how many cars. Look how many cars showed up for Lalie. Look how many cars showed up for Bong Bong. There's so many cars. And they have pictures of all these cars. And I really, that's how you gauge the popularity of your candidates, by the number of cars.
This is how Filipinos, when they favor a candidate, of course they're gonna like we call it do or die. So, I mean, they get so emotional about this, but it's okay. It's okay for me. It's okay. You get emotional about this, but then just don't hurt people. No physical. Yeah. And sometimes, but the words alone can already kill a person. So that's why don't go into that. Your candidate, whoever, we're going to respect your candidate, whoever that was. And my other concern about here, some people argue about who their favorite, but my next question is, do you vote? And they tell you, no, I don't, because I don't believe on. I said, oh my God, I wasted my time talking about you, and then you're the person who doesn't vote. Get it?
Don't say anything if you don't vote.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, okay. All right. I don't vote in the Philippine election, but I just talk about it because it's for me. But that's part of what I do here on the show. We talk about it and so forth. But that is incredibly true. Is that I find some of the people that are the most vocal, the people that are the loudest, are the people that don't even vote.
Yeah. Exactly. And they keep on complaining about the government, things like that. Hey, first we have our rights. Okay, you have one vote is very important, and a friend of mine says she always say this: my one vote is sacred, and that's why she said that I'm going to look at all the platform of all these candidates, and it doesn't matter who they are. And what I'm looking at is the future of my grandchildren, not any more children, because the children are grown up. So the grandchildren, what will be their future?
Rare person. That person is a very rare person. That you look at the platforms. Believe me, I have gone out over the last couple of weeks because I love this subject, and I say, well, so why are you voting for this person? Like, what is on their platform that you like so much? They don't know what their platform is.
Yeah, they just,
they're just. It's just, I'm very emotional and because that's my, she's pink and I'm pink all the way. So you're just voting for her because she's pink, or, you're voting for him because he's red. This whole color thing and the caravans or everything, but name something that they said they're going to do. Give me something that they're going to do. I can tell you what they're going to do. You want me to tell you what they're going to do? I've studied all this stuff. I know that, Bong Bong Marcos is pro-China and Lenny is pro, I can go through all the things that, the platforms, they don't really care. They don't really, care. I know some people do, but I have to say, in my own experience, that is rare in the Philippines, that people understand what the platforms really are.
Well, you know what? I'm glad most of my friends talk that way. That's why we have this, not a debate, but we are exchanging our, thoughts and ideas about the candidate. It's not like let's not talk about who are you going to vote, but let us talk about the platform of this candidate. So, at least we learn from each other. And I hope people will do the same. But, a lot of Filipinos don't. They just want the color. That's all they care. So whatever they can do for them in the future, I don't know. And then the sad part of that is when the candidate is vote buying. So with 1,000 pesos or 500 pesos, they're going to vote for that one. you are going, okay, Eric, if you receive 1,000 pesos now, the 1,000, I can just spend it in one sitting. Gone. What will happen to my future of my, grandchildren? So what will happen to them? If I am going to elect somebody or vote for somebody who has no really clear vision for the country, it's not really the money. Okay, and it's not even right for some candidates to say, oh, you just take the money and just go to everyone. No, that's not right. Yes, if you have in the right mind and if you have that integrity for yourself, okay, don't even accept the money. Just think of your future. Not you, because we're old already. Grandchildren. What will be their future? I think that's one thing they have to look at. My
unless it's 100,000 pesos. If you're giving me 100,000 pesos,
yeah,
maybe,
then we can go to
maybe.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's funny. It's funny. All my friends here in Cebu, they get. I don't want to say this in a bad way. They all get paid off at the election time. It's a great time. They don't vote. They don't vote. They just receive the money.
Yeah,
they don't
that's
vote.
The thing also. Yeah, that's the thing also for the candidates. Yeah,
Philippines.
That's okay. You're giving money away. That's okay because that maybe you really want to share. That's fine. That's no problem. But if they don't really vote, I don't expect anything.
Don't expect. All right.
Yeah.
What's our next question?
This is from John B. of Makati. BBM has gone out of his way to do his own personal drug test. Now, other candidates are doing the same. What do you make of all this?
Listen, we still don't know who Duterte's talking about. I mean, except that the person, what did he say this week? He says, how's the person getting away with it? Because they do the drugs on a yacht or a plane. And so all we know from Duterte is that this person has a famous father who was also a politician, and he's very, very wealthy. And he's using his father's legacy to get elected. So who could this be? Who could this be? I don't know who Duterte's talking about. But anyway, one of the people that has taken matters into his own hands has been Bongbong Marcos. And he decided that because it really sounds like him, that he's going to get his own drug test so that he will be ruled out. Now, here's where the thing kind of goes off the rails. How dumb does the Marcos think that the Philippine people are? I mean, he's trying to sell the idea that he went and got his own test that he set up himself that's supposed to get him off the hook for doing drugs. Okay. No. I mean, that's not the way drug tests work. I mean, if Bongbong Marcos is doing cocaine, and we're not saying that he is, we're not saying that he's doing this, but him getting a test like this proves nothing really. I mean, I have to say that. I mean, he could have done coke last week and it's not going to show up on a urine test. It has to be random. No. This is how drug tests work. So unless he wants to get his hair follicles taken out, which they can see 30 days back if he's been doing drugs, but to go in and do his own test with the people that he picks and so forth and say, oh, see, I'm not doing drugs. Come on.
Okay.
Tell me, Lalie Tolentino.
Okay, now 2016, when he ran for vice president, he was the one. He put up that memo that he's in favor of taking all this drug tests not only for himself but for everybody. 2016, okay, and it's done. Okay, now 2021, another issue because a lot of his, of course, some of his friends are no longer his friends. So now, all this issue will always come up. So now, what he did was, he took his drug test at the St. Luke's, but there's it's not on the St. Luke, but there's a DOH accredited testing area, and then that's why St. Luke came up with a statement. Because this is not helping also the hospital, and Filipinos they can always say things. So. Which I don't like also because, what if somebody in your family and you got sick and you need to go to, St. Luke's or something. We're talking about the hospital because this is where he went. Now, this is really unfair and, people can easily criticize about this and, there will, some institution will be affected on this one. So that's why this politics is really dirty. Because if even how good you are, when the people don't like you, they can just put you down. I mean, they can do anything to you. So that's why it's not, for me, being popular in this country is not good at all. Even if you're in just showbiz, you just did something, you walk in the mall. There's so many things that you will not like, and this drug test is okay. And everybody.
I mean, let's get back to this thing. Here's the question I have for you, Lalie Tolentino. I mean, who on the Marcus camp thought this was a good idea? I just don't understand. They knew. Surely they must have known that when they did this test, people are going to go, "Oh, you've got to be kidding me! You can't do a drug test on your own that you set up for yourself." That's not the way it works. And people keep asking me, do you think Bong Bong did cocaine? First thing, Bong Bong Marcus, when he was in college, he was getting 500,000 pesos a month for his allowance. Let's say maybe in college he did it, and then he told somebody or somebody found about it, but the question is he lying about his drug use? Did he use? Manny Pacquiao did drugs when he was young. He came out last week and said, yeah, they asked me if I did drugs. Hey, I did drugs when I was young. Because, they're saying that, Bong Bong Marcus lied about this and he lied about that. And he lied about this. So, of course, he's going to lie about his drug taking. So he's probably lying about his drug test. What I don't understand is the people that are doing Bong Bong Marcus's stuff for him, the advisors and so forth, thought that this was a good idea. I don't think that, if they really wanted to do it, they would have done it a different way. But they did it in such a way that it just looks like he's,
Well, you know what? Okay. I will not argue on that thing because it's, for me, I mean, I just have to respect all of the candidates or wherever they got their drug test. Whether they took drugs or whatever before, for me, it doesn't matter to me. What's important now is who they are now. It's not that, don't care about the past because the past is already, it's gone. Look at the future. Look at what we're doing right now. I mean, I'm not the person who look back. If I break up with my boyfriend before, if he lied to me, I forget all about it because now I'm looking forward. This is the way how it should think. Even as Filipino, even as a voter, I vote consistently every election. I don't miss any. All the candidates I voted did not win. Okay, that's fine. It's okay. I exercise my right, but we have to look at the positive side of every candidate. What it's going to be our decision whether it's BBM or not. Who knows?
Well, Lalie Tolentino, I only have one thing to say to you. Bill Clinton smoked marijuana when he was in college. We are out of time. I can't believe we're out of time. I mean, I wanted to go through all the other politicians that are getting their drug tests now. Mr. Laxton's getting a drug test. But anyway, we are out of time. So we're going to have to pick this up next week because this subject is clearly not going to go away for a while. But for me, Eric Lecain, and Lalie Tolentino, we will be back next week debating this yet again. So please join us then. And between now and then, everybody out there, please stay safe. And we here at the World News Jam, DZRJ, we'll see you next week.